This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. From time to time, we're going to catch up with the people who have shared their story on the show. Last time we caught up with Annie Smithers. She had closed to Fermier and was yearning to be with her team again. Well, the restaurant is open and Annie's back on the pans. Annie, how are you going?
Well, I'm pretty good. Man, it's good to be back in the saddle.
Well, it's been a while since we talked. We talked sort of almost right at the beginning of the pandemic, and everything was a little bit different then. What have you been doing in this period?
Adjusting, I think, like the rest of the world. Look, there's certainly been. I'm very lucky in the sense that I live on 23 acres. I have a large vegetable garden to keep me busy. I have animals to keep me busy. I'm working on a new writing piece, and there were some very, very lovely things about not being at work every day. But there was also some really dark days where that sense of purpose was really a sense of purpose, routine. They were all lost, and they weren't. There were some not so fabulous times in there too, but I never lost sight of how lucky I am in terms of where I live and how I live, which gave me great joy at sometimes over these last few weeks.
What did you do during that period to sort of help you get through some of the tougher days?
I think some of the tougher days were always related to the mechanics of things like JobKeeper. It was that burden of trying to understand things that are not naturally. I run my books, but I'm not an expert with all of that sort of stuff. So I leaned on my accountant a fair bit to try and make. And it was a great relief when it came out that sort of no one else really understood what was going on either, because I didn't sort of feel like such a patsy then. But just talking to people and just generally that sense of realising that this is something that everybody is dealing with. You're not alone on the boat in the middle of the ocean. We're all on the boat in the middle of the ocean, and just persevering and putting my hands in the dirt and doing my animal routines that are incredibly grounding for me. These are creatures that all need to be fed every morning and locked up at night when it's cold and wet, and so it's been very lovely to actually reconnect with nature. It's such a platitude, isn't it? But it's true.
So you've got the team back together and you've opened the restaurant again in sort of the form that you can based on the restrictions. What was it like being with the team?
Well, we do have the team back together, but not in the same capacity. I think one of the things that I found most challenging was a couple of weeks before we could go back to work is I suddenly got the frights up and thought, I don't know if I want to go back to work. I don't know if I can go back to work. I don't know if I can still do this. That sense of trepidation of something that you know so well and you've done it for so long. And suddenly I thought, what if I can't do this? What if I go in there and I don't like it anymore? So it was really quite confronting for me on a professional level. And then to start a restaurant, De Fermier has only ever been closed for 2 weeks at a time. So I think one of the things that's coming out over these last couple of weeks is to start something from cold for having been closed for more than 2 months. It's actually really hard, and machinery breaks down, things don't work properly, it's cold, it smells wrong. Like the restaurant really just smelt wrong because it was just sort of stale and cold, and so we cranked her all up for the long weekend, and we can only do 14 people. So it really is me and my lovely Bronnie on the floor and a dishwasher because I'm really a bit lazy to do the dishes. And we sort of thought, look, this is going to be a walk in the park, but mentally more than anything else, it was a really tough weekend to get it all up and running and remembering all the things that we have to do and the new things that we have to do. And then there was the realisation that because I work with a fixed venue, is that it's actually still the same amount of tasks. There's just not quite the volume. So I sort of misinterpreted a little bit and sort of, it does take almost the same amount of time to cook for 14 as it does to cook for 34.
Wow. And you don't have the same staff?
Well, I don't usually have staff, so it's just me anyway. But I just thought it might be a little bit easier than it was. But maybe I'm just out of practice. But second week in, so we've done 2 weekends now, and it is just delightful to be back doing what we do, and that little precious dining room is, at 14 is it's delightful. The spaces work quite nicely with all the things that we have to follow, and it doesn't feel like a morgue, and which we were a bit frightened of. And there's something really lovely about lavishing all our attention on our 14 guests.
So what did you cook for them?
Well, no surprise to you, I am actually going to be cooking duck for the next month or so to support Jodie at Great Ocean Ducks. So that's a step away from what we usually do, which is sort of rotate the proteins, every 5 or 6 weeks, and work through them all as the main course. So we're having a bit of a duck festival at the moment. So the first week I did a little entree of a simplified coulibiac, and then we had on 2 of the days we had roast crown of duck with little root vegetable and duck pithiviers. And on the other 2 days, we had confit duck leg with a mustard sauce and Brussels sprouts from the garden and spatzel, and that was delicious. And some cabbage.
Well, I haven't had lunch yet. You're making me really hungry.
And then the first week, I got something out of my system that I have wanted to get out of my system for a long time, and I did chocolate soufflés for dessert, because you cannot do soufflés when you're the only one in the kitchen for 30 plus, but you can for 14. And then this last weekend, we did a beautiful old-fashioned baked sponge pudding over raspberries and blackberries and rhubarb from the garden that had been frozen down, with brown sugar ice cream.
Wow. Okay, we might have to end this early so I can get some food.
Nothing to in the style to which I've become accustomed. Nothing too serious and nothing too just lunch. It's just lunch, and it's that capacity to. I think we might be a little bit of a dinosaur as we move forward in the fact that it's comforting, generous food that possibly sits very well in this new age.
How has this experience changed you?
Oh, I like to think that it's changed me for good. The world, it does feel, in a regional town, we have certainly felt that the general populace is almost snapping back to exactly where they were before, with no real understanding of the fact that all these little towns have been in hibernation for 2 months, and they have enormous protocols foisted upon them, and they can't just, make coffees for everybody that's come out of the woodwork after being locked up for 2 months. So there does seem to be a little bit of forgetting very quickly, and I hope that hope that that sort of settles down in the next couple of weeks. For us, we're lucky because we actually, once all 14 people are in, we actually lock the front door and we lock them into the building. And that's we can't be.
Sounds like a good lock-in to
we
me.
can't be disturbed. They can't be disturbed. I can't be disturbed. So it's a good system. But changing me, it is a case of being very aware and very proud of what we, in my little team does. We're very hands-on and we're very personable, and it's something that I would like to maintain. The sense of being proud of what we do and where we sit in the greater scheme of things has been magnified a little bit for me, and it's certainly not something I take for granted. But I can't believe how a series of, in some ways, random choices in my life have led me to an existence that can weather something like this, and also weather it in a way that I get an enormous amount out of it on a personal level in terms of just reconnecting with the values that are really important to me, which is hospitality and just nurturing and loving people just for that minute that we have them in the restaurant.
What's your feelings moving forward? There's been further announcements from the Victorian government sort of to allow more people in venues and opening society more, and I guess that means people will start travelling more. How are you feeling about the next 6 months?
Look, we're pretty nervous in the sense that the information that comes out from the government is not always clear in terms of how it relates to a lot of restaurants. And any restaurateur that works out of a small building, so either like an old strip shop like mine, or anything that is old and not purpose built, we are. The 4 square metre rule is the one that is, in a sense, least understood by the public, but most understood by us. So as soon as they say you can have more people in your restaurant, and they as soon as they get that, they ring us up and say, well, you can have more people. And we say, well, we can't have any more people because we've only got this amount, this square meterage, and this is the density that we're allowed to have. So it creates an enormous workload in terms of phone answering, and it's really hard for Bronnie and Katie just to say no to people all the time. If we are at capacity, we cannot do anything for you for at least 3 months.
Wow.
So we're a bit nervous. We're a bit nervous about the telephone. But moving forward, I've spoken to you about this, is I found that, this podcast was an incredible lifeline for me, over this period of time, listening to hospitality people from all over the country, and that, listening to their stories has made me very aware of how incredibly lucky I am, but B, has given me a great deal of things to think about in terms of how to move forward with the business and what to do with it in terms of future-proofing us. So do we stay with a small dining room and put a small retail shop at the front that would make it easier if we if we come across something like this again? And I suspect we may in our lifetimes. So it's about looking at our businesses, and for my business, it's do we go back to exactly as we were, which would be really comfortable, or do I throw the balls in the air and have a smaller restaurant with a retail arm? And then even little things like, do we include, on a Saturday and a Sunday that somebody who's coming to lunch could drive the extra 10 minutes out to the farm and have a little farm tour and raise a bit of revenue from doing things like that. So it's given me an enormous amount of time to think about what are the directions that are open to us and how to sculpt it so that if the recovery of this is very slow, or the looming recession and discretionary spending cut softens, what can we do to make us survive this in a way that doesn't stop us from doing it for the long term?
Well, Annie, I bloody love talking to you. We could just do a series talking to you. Look, very much looking forward to the day that we can head down to Victoria and have a bite to eat at your restaurant.
Come and see my funny little world.
Yeah, I would love to. I've loved hearing about it, and we'll hear more about it in the future because we're going to check in on you again. But thanks again for sharing your little story with us, and it's bloody amazing and inspiring. And thanks for being with us again.
Thanks to you and Rob, because I think that what you have done over these months has been absolutely extraordinary. If it's had the same effect on other hospitality folk and general populace as it's had on me, it has been a real lifeline. So I think it's been an extraordinary piece of, it's not really journalism, is it? That's actually come out of these terrible times, and you are one hell of a podcaster.
Well, I haven't got upset on a podcast for a week or two, but you just got me there. Thank you.
Oh, well, it's been amazing. So thank you. Thank you for giving us all a voice, and especially your voice.
Well, Annie, thanks again, and we'll be in touch soon, and can't wait to talk again. This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we share the stories of Australia's hospo community, suppliers and producers in search of hope during this pandemic. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.